This evening, we gathered at the Mumbai International Film Festival for a critical discussion on the Anthropocene and its impact on our planet. We extend our gratitude to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, the National Film Development Corporation, and the Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute, Kolkata. We are honored to host two visionaries who have captured the essence of conservation through their film, My Mercury. This session will examine the film's powerful message and its relevance to the seabird population of the South Atlantic. Our esteemed speakers will share their experiences and insights on storytelling that not only captivates but also calls for action. Please join me in welcoming, with a round of applause, Ms. Joelle Chesselet, who is the director. Please join me in welcoming with a round of applause Ms. Joelle Chesselet, who is the director, producer, and writer of the film My Mercury. Please come, ma'am. Also, Mr. LIoyd Ross, who is the director, camera person, editor, music composer, producer, and a founder of Shifty Records. Also moderating today's session is Mr. Shankar Ramakrishnan, a multifaceted creative force in feature films, non-fiction, museum installation, and literature. With regards to the question and answer, we will be taking up your question at the end of the session. Welcome. I now request Mr. Printal Kumar, who is the Joint Secretary Broadcasting, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and Managing Director of National Film Development Corporation, to felicitate our guest. Thank you so much, sir, for bestowing the honor. With this, I now invite Mr. Shankar Ramakrishnan to initiate today's pivotal discussion.
A very good evening to all the enthusiasts who've come to be in touch with Joelle and LIoyd here, because My Mercury was a special experience that was, we all watched it in full house auditorium too last evening at 6:30 it started, and by the end of 104 minutes, before the lights came up, I walked to this person who was standing, the director, the creator. Joelle, you were standing over there, and I came to you, and I could find that the tear in that screen, the last frame, there was a watery tear in the thing that was actually glistening on your eyes as well. 30 years, dear friends, 30 years, and a whole lifetime of dedication had gone behind the making of My Mercury. I need not say to people who have watched it here, I can see some of the faces, some of the people who have really been part of that film. Anthropocene, as you really know, the word, the term, it talks about a human intervention, the reaction it causes to the global, the different changes that happens to the habitat which is surrounding us. My Mercury tells the tale of Eve, who is also present here. I believe his spirit is present somewhere over here while he's doing his work. This film is a monumental effort, one man caught up in an island with a multitude of diverse life forms, including seagulls, penguins, and gans. So, I believe, ma'am, this platform, MIFF, makes it possible for us to see it in a big screen. As we said, mostly documentaries are watched in a smaller screen or in mobile phones sometimes. But I really thank MIFF to have created this platform where we could experience the entirety of the island and things like that. And I really want to know how many of you were during that screening. Vijesh, you were there during the screening? No. Any person among the audience who watched it last evening, I really want to know. Because normally the interactive session is actually put at the end of the thing. If there are people who watched it last evening, then I thought we will just start with some of the questions that you might have. So they really wanted to come and meet you, and I think we should be talking more about the film. I would like to know where did it all start from, this whole idea? Even though I have seen the film, I understand from where it is, but then My Mercury, what was the starting point?
The starting point was my brother, I guess, because it is about my brother, so it's a very close to my heart story. And he is a wild person, a poet, a pirate, and a bird lover. And I had the privilege of going to see him for the first time in his workspace, where you see in the film when he goes to Ichibu Island. Can you hear me? Yeah. He goes to Ichibu Island. He's posted there, and it's on the coast of Namibia. So Namibia, you know where that is. It's north of South Africa, northwest of South Africa, and it has a long coast, Atlantic coast. It's along the Atlantic coast, and there are guano islands there. So those are bird islands. It's a particular ecology that makes it possible for these birds to live on those islands. And he started on Ichibu, and I wanted to go there because I was always intrigued by my brother. As you can see, he was quite a mysterious character, but I suppose as his sister and as a person who's quite, sociable and in the world, he was always the mysterious one who had his own inner life, and it was amazing for me to be able to go and experience his life as a bird person. And he's able to live he lived for almost 20 years on and off on islands on his own and looking after the seabirds. So it started with that, and then I started reading his diaries. He gave me his diaries, which is a very private thing. And I was so kind of not shocked, but so impressed with his inner life and the mixture of that and this environment of seabirds and the fragility of that environment. That's where it started. It was like a love story of that kind of situation. I'll let you go on to that. I didn't know the arc of the film would go the way it would, because I followed him. So that was in 1988, made my first little film about him. And then later on, he moved to Mercury. He calls it My Mercury because it became his. It was his soul space, and it was there that he was able to realize the possibility of redressing a very imbalanced environment, single-handed. But with that came at a very cruel price. So that is that, you know, he had to chase. When he arrived on this island, you haven't seen the film, which is really tricky, but when he arrived on this island, it was covered in seals, and there were a few bird colonies, seabird colonies. They're all endangered seabird colonies. And he, you know, with the permission of the Nature Conservation Department, he was asked to chase them off single-handedly. It's a small island. You could do it, but you had to be extremely, extremely strong to be able to do that. Strong in the mind, resilient, alone, and, you know, what he had to do eventually was not what he thought he would have had to do. That is, he actually had to get rid of seal pups so that these baby seals would not breed on that island, so that they could restore it to the diversity that it was. The reason it's in the state that it is because man-made overfishing, guano scraping, that is bird shit scraping, that kind of exploitation of the birds, of the environment, led to the point where the seals were the top predators and the birds were going to be the complete victims of man-made imbalance. Sorry about that being too long.
No. The context being talking to an audience who is not so exposed to what they would experience later. There would be certain spoilers, but that is fine, as long as we are not going to delve more on the content side of it, but the process which is involved in making the film. So, prima facie, basically being the story of Yves Chesselet and the journals that he made. There is a fine point as a filmmaker which you are doing here. This is, ma'am, no doubt that this is a huge monument that you have actually, homage that you have done to your brother's epoch-making, you know, a sacrifice which he has actually done. But at the same time, it is a tale of hope. It's a tale of a revolution within. It's a tale of transformation. And it's also a tale of coexisting with other living beings in what you call a Mercury, which is, as you rightly say, very poetically you put it, that it looks like a crocodile. It looks like a dinosaur who is actually submerged in that under the sea. And over the top of it, where there is no vegetation, there are rocky cliffs, there are points which he names, there is another beach across. He studies the life of this thing, and like William Dafoe's Robinson Crusoe, he makes a total island, and he well, the word that he uses, you acupunctured the island. You acupunctured the island with, this is the areas where they are totally being colonized, and these are the areas that should be color-coded and saved. So you use that image to show what it used to be then and what Eve wanted it to be, that you show. So from that point, very, very clinically you show that these are the areas where seals are, and then you go into this very long process that he really took. And to use footage from 1988 to 1994, this major device which I was actually talking to Saket, because he's an editor. We were talking about this video logs which was created with this device. He named it VID, and he gave the camera a personality, and he would talk to the camera, romance it, at the same time make love to it, and also make its companion, and also, it was a very lively interaction he was doing with the camera. So being a sister and also a filmmaker, how did you actually, assimilate this entire data in a narrative style, and when you were making it through this years later, when you would revisit it, you had a story arc, or you really did it with the help of an intuition? How did you do it?
Well, when I found his tapes, so I had made a small film, a shortish film, 22 minutes or something, earlier, about life on the island there. And Eve was still very shy and very camera shy. And I asked him to, I suggested that he take a camera the next time and just, film whatever. I mean, I didn't know what he was going to do. I just thought, he was taking photos, so now he took a high 8. And then many years later, I had my children, etc., etc. Many years later, I started going through the tapes, and it was like finding gold, because there was this true relationship, nothing contrived, no lies. This was just him. He wasn't doing it for any particular reason. He wasn't showing off. He was just doing it because it was part of his almost his balance to have this camera as a friend, as an enemy, as a projection, as because he goes through all sorts of phases, like Robinson Crusoe in a way goes through phases during that journey that he makes, the man on an island. In a way, he goes through these phases as he goes through order and chaos. He goes through that whole Dionysius and Apollo kind of dichotomy, where you have chaos. The one day you get too drunk and you're alone. There's nobody. A man alone is a very fascinating thing. And for me, watching my brother be alone on this island, having this amazing insight into him through his own footage, I just was, every time, I think I must have watched the 20 hours, more, maybe 40 hours of material that he shot. And every time I was in stitches or I was tearful because the emotion in it was so powerful, I could not leave the subject alone, because I thought it was so universal, because there you have a man stripped and expressing, and nothing is a lie in it. It is, who he is, and it is so, in a way, universal.
Honesty is the word that he used for not telling lies, but then that is evident on the edges of every frame which is projected yesterday, because while it was reeking with a solitude, you also made us through the soundscape feel that there are 1,000 stars in that. You actually use that starry, under that starry sky in the nights, and a life bustling, like around more than 25,000 other living beings, which are constantly coming to attack or coming to, you go underwater at some point of time and then you show. That is where we have this magician a person who stitched this narrative with his own visuals. As a cinematographer, basically, did you also go through the images that you've shot at that point of time, and did you fill up the gaps, or there was a narrative according to which you shot because whatever he shot with on a crudely on a Hi8 or other cameras, like to fill that up, we have some unbelievable cinematographic happening on screen, whether it be a bird, whether it be that beautiful shot of two intimately communicating. I don't know what to say. Very intimately communicating that. Yeah, exactly. It's like that moment which is actually talking about what was saved, what wouldn't have been there, and that life which was saved, not that animals, but that emotion, it was there. So you had access to the footage before you saw this, or you wanted to do it?
Yeah, well, I'd seen Joel's original short film in fact, I did the music for it back then. We've been friends for a very long time. And just when she started, she started speaking about the Hi8 footage, probably in the mid-2000s or something to me. And then she showed me some of it, and it was just so compelling. So essentially, as a person that's trying to capture Eve's story in now, what you need to really do is try and bring that atmosphere across with the kind of technology we have today. So how we're going to actually meld that Hi8 footage, the Betacam footage, which is all like 4x3, with the widescreen stuff we didn't even think about. But we knew we had to have the widescreen stuff because, that's what people want to see. And they were able to, and through, us going there, we only managed to get there twice. It's a very, very difficult place to get to. It's 100 kilometers north of a place called Litteritz. It's right on the coastline. It's like 800 meters from the coast. But between Litteritz and a town called Walvis Bay, which is 300 kilometers up the coast, there's nobody. There's absolutely nobody. So to get there, you have to go on a research vessel or you have to go on a supply ship, and they're often not working. And you can't get there either if the sea is not completely flat, because there's nowhere to land. There's no beach, there's no pier, there's nothing like that. So we had to wait our time to get there, and we only had, unfortunately, I think 2 batches of 3 days, was it? Yeah, because if we'd missed the time to get off, we would have had to have been there another month or something to find another window to get off of it. So we had to work fast, and obviously having seen Eve's footage, you're trying to actually imagine that fitting into the footage that you're shooting, like the high-res footage that you're shooting then. So establishing the island on drones, and obviously the birds, you shoot a lot of birds. But also, there were a couple of narrative arcs that we knew were happening, and we basically just concentrated on those when we were there. And I think we kind of managed to get it.
You mentioned doing music for the shorter version and then getting into this thing. So, because we watched it in a big theater, like in an auditorium where we could actually experience the sound. To design it, like there's a very subtle way of finding music in this clamor, in this chaos, because it was actually a one man's fight against a colonial force which was happening, and there was no chaos from his side that way. Even though it was said that he used to whip away and things like that, he was a one man pitted against the multitude. One man. So one man pitted against the multitude. You were trying to give music from his sense of survival or his sense of sanity, or what was that cue that you used for creating?
Well, Joel would have to answer that because I didn't do music for the.
Okay.
Yeah.
LIoyd did the music for the first film that we made, and this music was composed by Rebecca Carrigord. So it was a woman from Norway. She's Norwegian but lives in Sweden, and there's also a lot of sound design, and I made sure that the dimensions of that it wasn't wall-to-wall music. So we pulled out so much music from what there was initially, just so that bird life could be felt. I mean, if I could have, I would have made it even more intense, but you can't, because when you're there and you are like we were, it was incredibly powerful, because you're feeling all these beings, all these beating hearts, this plumage, everything. It's like I had this epiphany there where, I just got the sense of vibration, and this whole place is just going like this constantly with all the birds, and the energy of it was absolutely riveting. And so I didn't want to lose that. So there were temptations to kind of over music it, but I think we managed to draw it back,
From the audience, basically, I would like to instead of pushing the interactive session, I just want to open up this discussion to this audience as well, where, to create a story out of available footage, and also to make a process resound to its intensity after you think that it is lost, is an amazing tale by itself. So the midway to this documentary, as we suggested, we were discussing, there is a particular throwback into the childhood of Eve at some point of time, where his mother was actually commenting on a particular moment that he wouldn't speak for the first 3 years of his life. And then comes a series of photographs of the innocence that this child at some point starting to slowly show the young man on the island chasing off these things, and also the guilt that overcame him by eliminating the cubs at some point of time. So he start talking about the nervous breakdown, and then we understand that this is not just an ecological, this is not a film which talks about the balance or anything. It is also talking about a human being trying to find his repentance. The film totally acquires another dimension there. So I really would like to know, to have these two tales woven into this interesting, very contemporary problem, and also at the same time being very personal, very autobiographical, and also understanding a sibling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why I call it an eco-psychological film, because it is such an internal journey that he goes on, and that we try as the team that edited it, try and portray. But what you're talking about, my mother's voice, it's very hard to do that, because it's your family, they're so close to you, and you feel like you're exposing them. So morally, the duty of care, it's called duty of care, to use your family. I'm not using them, but you could be interpreted as using them for, some sort of almost, it feels sometimes not right. Like even a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I said to LIoyd, I don't know what I've done. How could I expose my mother, how can I expose my brother to this kind of attention? But it was never my intention to do it in a harmful way. So just talking about that journey, I've lost my thought now, but it's just not an easy thing to do, to be so intimate with somebody so close to you about their inner life, and to then put it out there. But my brother has been remarkably accepting because it's not an easy film and it's not an easy... He's a hermit. He doesn't like being with people, and now he's seen by everybody. But at the same time, he was on a mission, and he filmed that stuff, even if he didn't really know what his intention was. He filmed it, and he was presenting himself. You know, did you see him at the end, and he's in that water, and he says, "Well, this is my Mercury, and I'm leaving now, and I'm okay about going." And he'd been through that whole journey. So in a way, I feel like I expressed what he wanted to express.
In that parting moment where he would make the last video, dipped in that cove where he was actually taking his final bath, he would talk to the vid.
He talked to vid.
He talked to vid and say that, better you capture this because I'm not going to return to this island. This is my last video. And it's like that, that final moment of farewell to his own companionship and his self, because I guess he left that self there, and he actually, like in Indian mythology, we say that the body perishes and the soul travels. So basically that eve he left there and he went into another space, like he left Ichibu to Mercury, from Mercury to another space. You say that another good man took charge of this thing, and he inherited this particular space and kept on doing the good work, but then he didn't have to fight so hard. What is happening in Mercury right now?
That is the tragedy, because the film ends in 2022. So that's recently. That was the last. You know, we finished the online in February 22, and I phoned around, and at the end there's some statistics that say, you know, and the birds are flourishing, and the seabirds are, and the seals are on the coast, and everything is back in balance. Yeah, in harmony. And what happens subsequent to that is that the Namibian government and the Namibian Department of Fisheries that had the duty to carry on doing, carry on having a person on that island that could look after the birds. They just dropped the ball. And within 18 months, that's why this is called, this little seminar, whatever is called, it can become too late to... you cannot dither when you're dealing with the destruction of species, because they really do go. And what happened is, about 2 months ago, I got these photographs of Mercury, and they portray a devastated island where the seals have been able to return, not fully, but they've scared all the birds, and there were thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of birds. There is nothing left on that island. I couldn't speak just about for a week after I saw that. And that is kind of climate change and over-exploitation and blindness to the real problems, like the seals, because people think they're so cute. And there is the operation underway, the complete destruction of that environment. And now people are reacting, but whether it's timely enough, I don't know. So I'm devastated about what's happened there. And I will use this film as an impact film to show what you can do and what happens if you don't do certain things. You know, if you don't actually keep watch, if you don't observe the fragility of an environment in the Anthropocene where we have so much influence on the outcome of things. And that is why I am in such a state.
To register this in a international community and also to make it more public. Basically, from the short form, you had actually translated into this 104-minute, a longer version where you could also shoot and add to the the narrative. So, how did that, was it, where you were actually, you were telling that a slice of your life was actually exposed to cinema is finally a collaboration. You said that other people also came in to tell your own tale. They found a reason to be part of you, and also they empathized with this whole concept, and also the effort that the brother has taken. So, can you just put some light on that process where, when you started opening it to the world for more further collaboration until it was released by A24 early this February, that process, like from that making process of where you had to involve other people, was it as easy as you thought?
Not at all. No. But it was an incredible privilege, and to actually have the film made after all those years and pitching for 7 years, in different places, in Lisbon, in England, in Switzerland, etc. You go and you try and sell your film and your idea, etc., etc. And then going to Portugal, where I met Mandy Chang from BBC Storyville, and she said she saw me and she saw the poetry and she wanted to have this film made. She saw the trailer, and that was an amazing gift when somebody actually gets the story. It's not easy. There must be thousands of fantastic films that are still sitting there dormant, never get made. And I thought that would be the fate of my film, actually. And that was 7 years of working. And then having to collaborate with people who have their own idea about what, your film is going to be and should be. And they have their imported... So I worked with British people, and they were... the editor I worked with, Jinx Godfrey, is a top editor, and she's a wonderful person, but she was quite strong-minded. And I landed up in a very kind of a tug-of-war situation where I had to protect the film and protect Eve, so that, the sensationalism of the story wasn't overtaken. The story was not overtaken by some kind of, non-truth. So to keep that line was very interesting.
Thank you so much for that exposition, that it was not easy. And also, as you said, the film was honest, the filmmaking was also, we can feel that it's not so easy to make when you have a stand. When you really stand up, it actually aches, that burns and that pains. In this process of showing it to MIFF yesterday, I saw after this thing, basically there was this number of people around you, and also that really talking about the experience. They couldn't really believe that this real island exists somewhere over there, and then did a man really do this? They couldn't really believe till what they saw. So when you show this film in different parts of the world, like, have you ever had similar experiences where you have seen it in a large format? So how do you find MIFF as a place of interaction, and especially, like, in terms of projection and exhibition, also interacting with a live audience, not now, but then basically at least you had that yesterday. I found that LIoyd was also documenting it. That's what you said, that you by nature but then basically how was the feeling at MIFF?
No, it's been such a privilege, because I've never seen it with a whole lot of people. I've seen it in little clumps with other people, so it was absolutely fantastic. And I feel really honored. It's the world premiere, actually, so it's the first time that I'm actually witnessing it with people I don't know, and the feedback was very, very positive. I could see that the people who had decided that they would go on the journey, because it's not an easy journey to go on. The film, you can think, oh, why am I watching this thing? It's sad, it's dark, but it's also light. It's very human. So, and I also, just because we're rounding off, I think, I want to thank the people that worked with me, like Pippa Ehrlich should have been here, my co-director, who came in quite late in the process, but was an invaluable support, an asset. And she comes from the natural history background. I come more from a philosophical background, and all the other people who worked on it, but especially.
I'm kind of glad Pippa didn't make it, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. So.
True.
So it's time actually for the members from the audience to kind of ask you, or at least interact with you on a film that they might not have seen, but I'm sure they would definitely watch it, because there are people who believe in such impossible dreams, as you said. Some films they think that they wouldn't be, ever made that way. But then we'll just open up this moments for you to directly interact with Joelle and Lloyd. Both of them are here.
Hello, Joelle ma'am. My question is to you, you have been working on this film for quite a long time, so I'm sure there must have been down moments and you must have had your doubts. Whether they were in first place, or if they were, then how do you deal with them?
How did I didn't understand the last part.
When you were in self-doubt, because it took a long time to make, so how did you deal with your own personal doubts? That's what.
Yes, right? Exactly.
It's you just have to. You have to. I quote the I Ching: perseverance furthers. So if you don't. You've just got to keep going when you really think there's no point in carrying on. How many rejection letters have I had for the film? Dozens, maybe 50. Where you fill in the form, you pay the entry fee, you want it to be. That is the life of a filmmaker. I think you've got to kind of just become immune to the rejection, just like writers get immune to, if you don't, then you can't do it, because nobody's going to. It doesn't mean they don't like it. It's just there's too much choice. So but I'm not the world's most confident person, so I had to wrestle with my inner demons of You could say.
Yeah, so we also cut quite a few trailers and sizzle reels and that kind of thing. And I think that's probably a good thing, because each time you do that, you get to know your film better. And maybe the next time you pitch it, there's just something that clicks with somebody, like happened with Joelle and Mandy Chang, who's a really good person to have clicked with, actually. Storyville. Okay.
Yeah. No, there's nothing easy about it. But this has been a very, very, a very positive experience. It makes it worthwhile.
So as part of them, I think it's time for our conclusion, but definitely not before asking you one final question. Having made a long journey like this, what are you up to next? What both of you, I know you're...
Well, I think this one's going to take me a little bit on a journey, because I want to fight for those birds, but that's more... that's not to do with film that much. And then LIoyd, as we said, started a record company in the 80s in South Africa during the fight against apartheid. And that record company was called Shifty. And Shifty Music was the soundtrack. Some people call it the soundtrack of the revolution. It's not quite that, but let's say all the music that was made a lot of the music that was made in South Africa that was kind of protest music, not necessarily rah music, but and was not played on the radio, and everything was underground. And I'm going to be making a film about that. it's called Shifty House on Fire, and we are going to be collaborating on that. Well, obviously he's the man and who started that record company, and I've been privy to it the whole time because it's what made me decide to stay in South Africa. I came from Belgium. My mother's South African, came from Belgium, heard some of those tracks, and I thought there's hope in this country, and I stayed. And so it's another passion project. We'll see what happens.
Is Eve aware that both of you are here representing him, his film? Is he aware of that today? He is aware of that, and what was his reaction after you said, yesterday we had this first global premiere, and what is he right now? Where is he? What is he doing now?
He's still looking after birds, and he sent me a message now today.
We can just listen to Eve's message. The protagonist in this film has sent a message.
But he didn't send it. He just said to me because I was interviewed yesterday. And somebody quoted me as saying, every single thing about this film is true. And he said, yes, that is exactly it. Every single thing about this film is true. That's what he said. But
with that statement, I guess our session comes to an end. Every single thing about My Mercury is true.
Thank you so much for sharing that incredible experience and insights with us. We express our profound thanks to Shankar Ramakrishnan for steering today's critical dialogue. And also we extend our gratitude to Ms. Joelle, Chesselet and Mr. LIoyd Ross for their compelling contribution to today's session. We acknowledge the National Film Development Corporation for hosting this festival under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And we also extend a heartfelt thank you to our audience for your engagement this evening. This is your anchor, Dr. Sunita Pal, signing off.